Well, hey there, happy February. It's already the second month of 2023. What the F? Welcome to my little video series that I call Crime Dip, where I come hang out every Thursday and let you all know about some true crime cases I have stumbled across this week. My name is Crystal Sky, and this week I'm actually going to have quite a few updates of stories that I've covered in January, and then we will end today's video with a look at the ongoing case of Cassidy Rainwater. Have you heard of this case? We'll get all into it. And before we start, just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting. I'm so sorry. I've been slacking so hard on the comments. I have so much going on right now, guys. I'm barely able to make these videos. So I'm so sorry, but I promise I am getting to them and I do see them, I promise. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much for, just watching my dumbass on YouTube and watching me talk about true crime cases. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Well, let's get into this week's cases. So, like I said, there were quite a few updates on some cases that I was following, cases that we covered in January, and I wanted to share some of those updates with you. So our first update comes in the case of Aiden Fucci. Do y'all remember this one? The 14-year-old who stabbed his 13-year-old classmate, Tristan Bailey, over 100 times in Florida, and she was found on Mother's Day in 2021. So we've got a little bit of some updates in this case, primarily revolving around Aiden's time behind bars, and it doesn't seem to be going well. So let's get into it. So there have been several documented instances of Aiden being violent, being belligerent, threatening inmates, threatening guards, and there have been numerous reports filed about these instances. So let's look a little bit into this and see what exactly his behavior has been. So according to a report filed on October 28th, 2021, corrections officers, I guess, noticed that Aiden's eyes were sort of like baggy, maybe a little puffy or whatever. Now, the report states that Aiden allegedly told the corrections officers that he was actually beaten by the St. Johns County deputies when he had refused to get out of the car. He was being returned to jail. I think he had like a court appearance or a lawyer meeting or something, and he wouldn't get out of the car, and Aiden alleged that these deputies beat him up. He reportedly later said no one actually had hit him, he just wasn't sleeping that well. So another more violent incident was reported on Christmas Day, December 25th of 2021. A corrections officer witnessed Aiden punch another inmate. And it makes it sound like the inmate sort of whooped Aiden's ass, started, hitting him multiple times. Corrections officers intervened. Looks like the inmate who Aiden punched was stun-gunned, while Aiden was, asked, why on earth did you do that? And Aiden told officers that he was allegedly being extorted for his commissary items. And he was also being bullied. And when guards asked him, well, why didn't you report any of those instances? Aiden is reported as saying, quote, "I ain't no snitch." And after this fight, Aiden was placed in solitary confinement. Now, another incident was recorded on January 20th, 2022, when officers discovered Aiden was extorting another inmate for their commissary items, quote, "by using fear." So it makes you kind of wonder if he was being even extorted and bullied, I read that and I was like, wait a minute, he said that this other inmate was, bullying him and extorting him for his items, and then about a month later, we find out, oh no, Aiden's been doing that to another inmate, so I don't know what to make of that. Now, apparently when officers tried to take these extorted items back from Aiden's cell and give them to the inmate that he had gotten them from, the report states Aiden, quote, "became highly agitated and made threats against the officers' lives that were getting the commissary items back for the other inmate." The report also adds that officers added, quote, "Inmate Fucci made threats to kill our families while beating on his cell door in a loud, vicious manner." Another report filed only 5 days later on the 25th noted that Aiden had allegedly made numerous threats to other inmates. It mentions that fight that happened on Christmas Day and says Aiden, quote, "has been relentless in his threats against 2 particular inmates." One of those inmates told officers, quote, "Fucci been saying he gonna stab me up when he gets back to GP. He be telling everyone in the dorm that when he get out, he gonna find my people and stab them and take pictures. He go around saying we all pussies because most of us in here for shooting someone and killing them. He says he real because he stabs bitch face to face and take they life. It's like he get high off it or something." Yeah, that's disturbing. Other threats Aiden has made just included, like, threatening to stab other inmates, stab guards. An inmate seemed to verify this other inmate's statement by saying Aiden has been going around saying, quote, when he gets out of the box, he's going to stab him up. And on October 5th, 2022, another report filed states that correction officers found, quote, an excess of books and magazines inside Aiden's cell, which I guess was like a big no-no. This was during what they called a shakedown, so I'm guessing maybe like a random search. Now, Aiden reportedly refused to let officers remove those items, causing a big fight, and he was so violent in fighting the guards so much that the report states that he was actually pepper sprayed and then put in a restraint chair until he calmed down. Now, as of the recording of this video, which is on a Monday, Aiden has another pretrial hearing scheduled for Wednesday, which is February 1st, so actually yesterday if you're going by the day that this video is airing. And unless something changes in that hearing, he is still slated to go to trial on February 6th. Another quick update on this case was that on January 20th, I believe it was this year, the state filed a motion requesting a 6-person jury trial for Aiden. Now, since Aiden isn't eligible for the death penalty, due to his age, apparently this is something the state can allow. If it was a death penalty case, they would have to have a full 12-person jury. Now, the local news/radio station that I got this update from, Action News Jax, asked their legal expert, Dale Carson, like, why the state would want a 6-person jury, and that's just kind of weird. I didn't even know that was a thing. And this is what Carson had to say. Quote, the reason for a 6-person jury is it's more likely to convict than a 12-person jury. If you're a defense attorney, you want 12 people on the panel in the hopes that one of those 12 individuals, those sworn jurors, will not agree with the conviction. The defense can argue against it, but ultimately it's a decision for the bench, the judge, to make. And I couldn't find anything like if the judge was gonna allow this to go through or what. Maybe after this hearing that he has on February 1st, maybe there'll be some more information then, and then I can give an update on that. Now, the local news station where I got these updated reports on Aiden's behavior behind bars, News 4 Jax, interviewed Shannon Schott, and she's an attorney and juvenile law expert, and they kind of wanted to get sort of like her take on, this whole case, Aiden's behavior behind bars, and I just thought it was really interesting, and I think it's something that is really important to note, that what she says. So she said, quote, this is the reality of children being incarcerated. I think it's important to remember that these are all children who are put into a box and they're given very little supervision and very little resources to deal with the fact they're charged with serious offenses. And yeah, man, like it sounds like Aiden has some problems, definitely has some anger issues. And considering he was 14 when he murdered Tristan, it really does make you wonder, like, what the hell was going on behind closed doors? Because you never know, right? And if you remember, his mom was already caught trying to hide evidence for him. There was blood on his jeans, and they have video evidence of this dumb bitch, like, washing her son's jeans and then trying to cover it up. Like, I'm sorry, I get that's your kid, but no, you're not doing him any favors. So I don't know. It sounds like he definitely has some problems. And like Schott pointed out, this is what happens when you just throw kids behind bars and you don't give them the proper treatment or resources. Like, yes, he did a horrible thing, all right? Allegedly. Because he hasn't been convicted yet. But, he's still a child. His brain is still that of like a 14-year-old. And you think he's getting resources behind bars to deal with anger or whatever else is going on? No. We don't believe in rehabilitation here in the US. We just believe in punishment, punishment, punishment. But of course, we kind of have to when you have a for-profit prison system, right? So yeah, again, he did a terrible thing, allegedly, because he hasn't been convicted yet. But man, like I almost feel sorry for him because, if he is convicted, you think he's going to get the proper treatment and help behind bars? No, not at all. He's probably just going to get more damaged, honestly. So let's get on to our next update, and it's an update in the case of Michael Haight. Remember the garbage human being who murdered his wife, mother-in-law, and his 5 children, aged 17 through 4 years old. And this was, of course, before offing himself, and this was in Enoch, Utah. So we have a little bit of updates, a little bit more information coming out about that case. So probably not too surprising. It looks like Michael has a little bit of a history of abuse and anger towards his family. shocked Pikachu face. So on August 27th, 2020, it is now being revealed that police responded to the hate home, and this was after Michael had allegedly physically assaulted one of his children. It was his oldest daughter, Macy, who was approximately like 14, 15 years old when this incident occurred. It said someone outside the home, possibly a neighbor, was actually the one who alerted authorities to this, so not sure what happened there, but yeah, someone outside of the hate household was the one who summoned authorities. The allegations also included, quote, a lot of yelling and emotional abuse. So in the report, Macy detailed 3 separate occasions where her father physically assaulted her. Macy told police at this time that the first instance had occurred approximately 3 years prior to this, and it had occurred in the family's piano room. Quote, her father became angry at her and grabbed her by the shoulders. He shook her and her head banged into the wooden piece along the back of the couch. She stated that she was terrified he was going to hurt her. She stated that she did not suffer any injury from this event. She was mostly scared. Yeah. Now remember, when Macy's telling the officer this, it's 2020, so she's approximately like 14 or so. So that means this instance that she's talking about to police officers happened when she was, what, 10 or 11 years old? How the hell do you do that? How do you put your fucking hand on a goddamn child? No, I'm sorry, but like that pissed me off. How dare you? Macy then told police about another incident that was about 2 years prior, where Michael had allegedly grabbed her, quote, around the neck and choked her. And this is while they were in the pantry area of the family's kitchen. Quote, she stated that she was very afraid that he was going to keep her from breathing and kill her. I asked her if she actually lost her breath. She stated that she did not. She stated that he did not choke her. This guy was already a shitbag of a human being, but dude, like reading about these, I was just incensed. Dude, putting your hands on a child, your own child, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, like, I have no sympathy or empathy for adults who abuse children in any way. So in this third instance that brought the cops to their home in 2020, quote, Macy stated that her father became angry with her and grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. She stated that she did not sustain any injury. And this happened in the family's garage. They had just gotten back from a camping trip. Macy also told officers that her father would constantly talk about, quote, how stupid and lazy Tasha is. Yeah, demeaning the children's mother in front of them, telling them how their mother is lazy and stupid. Macy also told officers that Michael would take their mother's phone in an attempt to, quote, keep her from leaving the house. She stated that there have been several times over the last few years that her father, Michael, has become assaultive with her. Now, when questioned by police, you think Michael manned up and took responsibility? Of course not. He denied everything, Macy said he never grabbed her, never choked her, and never assaulted her. He did, however, tell the police, quote, that he does lose his temper and yell at the kids. Later, he stated that if he had indeed done these things, it was not meant to be an assault. He stated that Macy is mouthy and he gets angry at her. She's a fucking teenager, you asshole. You're the parent. Yeah, can you believe that? Well, you know, she's kind of mouthy to me. Oh, F off, dude. Michael also said that he should be given a break because he had a, quote, tough year. Oh, was 2020 a tough year for you, Michael? It wasn't tough for anyone else. And he said, yeah, it's because his daddy died and his brother was going through a divorce and it was just too much and he should be given a break. I get the father's death affecting you. How does your brother getting a divorce? I don't understand how that, like, affects you and makes your year tough. You would think that your brother's year was tough. I just thought that was super weird. Michael also told officers that he believed Tasha and her sister had, quote, been talking and saying mean things about his mom and his sister. I'm sorry, dude. I have, like, no patience for this asshole already, and then I'm reading all this. Like, I am incensed. Michael said this is why he took Tasha's phone and even her iPad. He had taken her iPad to work, quote, for several days to look at her texts and messages. Yeah. That's a healthy marriage. That's a healthy view to have of your relationship. Like, are you kidding me? Checking your wife's texts? In the over 13 years that Jeff and I have been together, we have never once checked each other's phones. And I guess when Tasha repeatedly, like, asked, like, where did my iPad go? Like, she couldn't find it. Michael, of course, you know, played dumb, but eventually, quote, slipped it back where it would be found in the house. Now, Surprise, surprise. No charges were filed against Michael in this incident in 2020. And I'm going to read the supplemental report that the officer who responded to this typed up. It's just a perfect example of the small town good old boys club. So the report stated, quote, "I advised Michael that his behavior was very close to assaultive." Very close? What? "I advised him that I did not intend to charge him with any crime at this time. I talked to him about the importance of Macy continuing to speak with a therapist. I asked him not to interfere with that." Oh, well, if you asked him nicely. "I also advised him that he should continue seeing someone about his anger. I advised him that I would much rather be having this conversation with him instead of taking him to jail." Wow. If only Black people who were pulled over for nonsensical traffic stops got that same consideration. Yeah, this is what happens when you're in a small town and the abuser is part of that organization. Remember, Michael was a community member, he was a member of the church, and let's keep it real, guys, I've lived in small towns my whole life. This is exactly how this shit works, okay? The officer then advised Tasha to call them if there were any other problems. Quote, "Tasha indicated that she is in hopes that this case will be a wake-up call for Michael. She stated that she does not believe that criminal charges will be appropriate at this point." And dude, and I read that and oh God, it's just like, you just want to go back in a time machine and just like grab Tasha and be like, no, you need to run now, But it's so complicated, right? When you're dealing with a spouse, a family who's being abused by the head of the household, you know what I mean? It should also be noted that the Department of Child and Family Services were actually already aware of Michael and his behavior before this 2020 visit. But there's no other details concerning, just that he was known to them before this. Another incident that sort of just kind of adds to this picture of Michael being a violent dick. It's not a huge incident, but I just think, again, it just sort of gives a little insight into what a prick this guy actually was. So this was a 2015 incident, and I guess Michael called the police, get this, for a group of boys who were like standing in the road and blocking his driveway or something. Like, I don't know if he was trying to get out of his driveway or if he was just being a Karen. What's the male Karen? Ken? Or what? But I don't know. But apparently he called the cops on them, and 2 of the kids were later charged with disorderly conduct. And apparently Michael's behavior throughout this whole thing was just very aggressive, very prickish, just very mean. One of the boys who was there but was not charged said Michael had begun to, quote, act aggressively towards them, but surprise, surprise, the interviewing officer made no other notes of any other characterizations of Michael's behavior. So again, not a huge thing, but just considering everything we now know, just kind of adds to this picture of him being a violent dick. And now it is also being reported that Macy texted a friend the night before she would be murdered, quote, stating her dad came home, was acting strange, and she was worried. Ugh. That broke my heart when I read that. It is also being revealed through search warrant affidavits being unsealed that it was actually neighbors who had discovered the family slaughtered in their home, not officers as it was initially reported. So according to the affidavit, quote, neighbors from the family's church made entry into the home. Deceased bodies were discovered. Michael was positively identified as one of the deceased by one of the neighbors who went into the home. And the warrant doesn't state, like, why the neighbors went into the home, why they thought the Haight family warranted a welfare check. It doesn't really go into any of those kinds of details. It was also being reported that as a welfare check was being requested at the Haight household, a missing persons report involving Michael was being taken by Cedar City Police. Apparently his Ford F-150 truck was found in the driveway of his parents' home in Cedar City, and I was kind of confused by that. That's just what the article said, and it didn't elaborate any further on that. Another search warrant affidavit that was unsealed seeks a judge's approval for the seizure of multiple electronic devices in the Haight household, and this included an iPhone that was found on Macy's bedside table, a second iPhone, quote, on a luggage pile a couple of feet from her bed, and there were 5 phones, tablets, and iPads found in the master bathroom that was connected to the master bedroom, where the bodies of 2 adults and one of the children was found. They did not specify who they were, and another iPhone was located next to Michael's body. The devices were sent to the Utah Tech Digital Forensics Lab, where it will take several weeks to extract the data and go through it. And one quick little update. Apparently, Michael's family released his obituary on January 11th, and it garnered lots of warranted and understandable backlash and anger. So much so that the site that published it, Cedar City Spectrum, had to take it down. So some of the adjectives used to describe the this obituary that Michael's surviving family members wrote about him were, you know, things I saw were like, quote, vile, grotesque, gaslight nation. These are just some of the adjectives that people were using to describe this. So in the obituary, it just paints Michael as a loving husband, father, churchgoer, businessman. It noted that he coached his kids' sports teams, attended their concerts, went sledding with them, and was just an all-around active father with his children. It also went on to describe Michael's commitment to the church and to his community. Now, backlash for this obituary began after Shannon Watts, who is founder of Moms Demand Action, a self-described, quote, grassroots movement of Americans demanding reasonable solutions to address our nation's culture of gun violence, tweeted out the obituary, talking about how distasteful it was, how disgusting it was, you know, and her tweet quickly went viral, and soon the whole thing went viral. And many were just pissed at not just the way Michael's was like described as this like great guy, but I think what people were mainly upset about is how his family went out of their way to describe him as just like the ultimate family man and father and husband. That really rubbed people the wrong way. So just one part of the obituary read, quote, Michael made it a point to spend quality time with each and every one of his children. Michael enjoyed making memories with the family. Dude, look, man, like, I get it. I get it's probably tough, but like, I've done quite a few, true crime research, and I have come across obituaries from murderers, from killers that was written, by their family, and none of them did this, like painting them as this like great person. It was just more of like factual stuff about this person and how they felt about him. Like, I'm sorry, I don't really blame people for getting angry, like, if you want to keep that shit, like, within your family and friends, whatever, that's fine, but to, like, publish it, like, to send it out and have this site, like, publish it, because most of these sites, they don't read the obituaries. They just kind of, the family submits them and they post it. It's like, I don't know, read the room a little bit, you know what I mean? One headline I read was pretty funny. It read, quote, bizarre obituary praises Utah dad, Michael Haight, who killed wife and 5 kids. So yeah, people were righteously angry. They were very angry. And it's really no surprise, right, that Michael's funeral was held completely separate and in isolation from that of Tasha, the children, and her mother, Gail. And not too surprising that his funeral was private and was only open to family and friends. Meanwhile, over 800 people showed up to Tasha and the children's funerals. I believe her mother's funeral was also around the same time. I think it was for all of them. And there was one comment on social media that I found that was just very poignant, and I just wanted to read it because, yeah, man, like, it kind of describes the situation and why people were angry, So it reads, quote, his survivors must feel a complicated grief. I'm sure that's hard, but their celebration of him erases his family and crime and adds to the victim's family's grief. Yeah, I mean, it kind of does, right? Yeah, I don't know. Family annihilators, man. Such pieces of shit. Like, I don't care what was going on with Michael. I really don't care. Like, if you want to go off yourself, that's your decision. Don't you dare bring other people with you. But that's the thing, right? I guarantee you, Michael didn't view his family as human beings or people. They were his toys, his playthings. They were his property. They were not autonomous human beings. I mean, I'm just kind of making a bunch of assumptions and talking out my ass. It just made me so angry. Like, reading about his past history with abuse, the fact that these idiot cops and these idiots in power who, they all knew Michael and they were buddy and stuff. Like, it's just an example of the good old boy club at work once again, and it is especially true in very small towns. And I have lived in very small towns a majority of my life, like legit small towns. So let's move on to another quick update. And this one revolves around Dharmesh Patel. Remember, he is the man who is accused of driving his Tesla off a cliff in Northern California with his wife and 2 young children aboard, where they dropped 300 feet and miraculously survived. So if you'll remember, police think that he did this intentionally. So on Friday, January 27th, Dharmesh was officially booked in the San Mateo County Jail, and he is currently in custody with no bail. Now, officials said that his bail could possibly be arraigned on Monday, January 30th. This is actually the day that I'm recording this video. If the San Mateo District Attorney's Office decides to file criminal charges. So I will probably have to come back next week for an update and see if they had decided to file criminal charges against Dharmesh. It is not yet known exactly when he was released from the hospital, just that we know he was booked on Friday, January January 27th. Now, District Attorney Steve Wagstaff did say that in addition to, checking out Dharmesh and seeing, if he did this intentionally, they are also looking at the Tesla itself just to see if there was a mechanical failure, like, did he do this on purpose? Was it the car's fault? Like, what is this? Trying to get to the bottom of this. Wagstaff said, quote, "Did the brakes fail? Were the brakes working? Were there any other mechanical malfunctions that would have led him to not being able to stop the vehicle? We're having the car looked at from top to bottom." He also stated that prosecutors are in the very, very early stages of this investigation, and that is all that is known right now. And just wanted to share that update that now Dharmesh is behind bars. And yeah, I will definitely be keeping an eye on this one, because this one just boggled my mind. I was just like, really? So yeah, definitely be keeping an eye on this one. Another super quick update is in the case of Billie R. Davis. She stabbed an 18-year-old Indiana University student as the student was waiting to get off the bus in the head, simply because the student happened to be Chinese. So Billie is currently behind bars on a $100,000 surety bond or $1,000 cash bond. It looks like she has officially pleaded not guilty, and her attorney, Kyle Duggar, filed a notice on January 18th stating that they plan on using the insanity defense. He also filed a motion for Billie to have a competency hearing. He says that he plans to prove Billie is unable to assist in her own defense, and a pre-trial conference is currently scheduled as of the recording of this video for February 16th. And our last update has to do with 21-year-old Jared Dykes, who murdered and decapitated his wife, Angie Diaz. They had only been married a few months. So on January 19th, Jared was formally indicted and charged with Angie's murder, and this was by a Waller County grand jury. And on January 24th, his bond was upped from $500,000 to $1 million. And this was after Waller County District Attorney Sean G. Whitmore argued that Jared's previous bond was just not high enough due to the heinous, violent nature of this crime. He also cited Jared's past violent behavior with police when he was charged with the DWI. We will get into that in just one moment. And all throughout his bond hearing and this arraignment, it is said that Jared just wept uncontrollably, so much so that the judge had to give him a tissue. Whether those are tears for, Angie and what he did to her, or himself, maybe both. Who knows? And on top of increasing his bond, the judge also ordered a mental evaluation of Jared. So yeah, it looks like when Jared murdered his wife, he was actually out on bond for a DWI charge. So in November of 2022, Jared was arrested in Montgomery County for driving while intoxicated after a Magnolia police officer was dispatched to Whataburger. So this was around 2 a.m. and employees at the Whataburger called police after they said Jared became aggressive with them. So they told police that Jared had come through the drive-thru, ordered food, and he was trying to pay with Apple Pay, and I don't know if it didn't go through, if they didn't have it. I'm not sure what caused it. But all the article says is that after this, Jared tried to go inside the restaurant to argue with employees, and quote, he was so belligerent that they locked him out. So yeah, I don't know what he was doing, but yeah, good on them, dude. Y'all don't get paid enough to deal with that shit. So according to the responding officer's report, he found a bottle of Bud Light in the console of Jared's car. It was about 3/4 of the way full. The officer also stated in the report that Jared told him he had taken painkillers earlier, but he didn't know which ones. So he was arrested after this, of course, and according to reports, I'm guessing this is when he was at the jail, but Jared continuously made threats against the arresting officer, the other staff at the Montgomery County Jail, and according to Whitmore, quote, the defendant continued to exhibit mood swings and violent behavior, including punching windows, until he was ultimately placed in a restraint chair for the execution of a blood warrant. So in Texas, a blood warrant allows authorities to forcibly draw blood from a suspect or inmate and then, test it for drugs, alcohol, whatever. And records show that Jared was ultimately released on a $1,000 bond for that DWI charge. So that's the update with Jared. For Angie, her funeral was held on Sunday, January 22nd, at Magnolia's First Baptist Church. Her family said that they remember Angie as a young woman who was full of hope, whose life was cut short, that they were currently coming to terms with her death. One of her aunts described Angie as an angel sent by God, who touched everyone who met her with her contagious joy and smile. She said everyone who ever met her will forever hold a piece of her in them. And this made me tear up when I read it, man. Her family also stated that while Angie's death was tragic, they have no room in their hearts for hate. They said death isn't a goodbye. It's just a see you later until we meet again. And I don't know why, but that just... When people can do that like forgive and not dwell on the hate and the anger and the pain. Dude, that's just phenomenal, because I don't think I'm that big of a person. I don't think I'm that emotionally mature, you know? Like, if someone took my daughter like that, dude. So yeah, I just thought that was just very, very sweet of her family. Like, just incredible. And it looks like Angie's body will be sent to Nicaragua, or like it has been. There were like conflicting reports, so I was really confused. So if you remember, Angie was originally from Nicaragua, and she had her aunt back there who practically helped raise her, and her aunt and family over there also went to say their proper goodbyes. So her family was trying to get her body sent back to her native homeland. So one article stated that the family had already sent her body over there, and it was actually expected to be there on January 24th, but other articles that had a more recent date stated that her family was currently raising funds on their GoFundMe page to help ship her back. So I'm not sure if she is back in her homeland now, or if they're raising funds to currently send her there. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this one, because this one just broke my heart. Just reading about Angie and like her family. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I'm going to keep an eye on this one, because I definitely want to know, like, what the fuck, you know? So those were all the updates of cases we covered in January, and now let's end today's video by examining an ongoing case, all right? The trials for these cases are coming up. It's the case of Cassidy Rainwater. So this case was actually suggested to me by a viewer of my crime dive videos that air every Tuesday, the more thorough deep dives into true crime cases. And Amber Tetlow, this one's for you. I have been keeping an eye on this case. I remember when it first broke, and I've been keeping an eye on it. And I wanted to take this opportunity to go into the case, what we know so far. The trials for this case are upcoming. There will be 2 trials. And since I don't really do ongoing cases on my crime dive series, I thought this would be a perfect place to go over this case with you guys. So in August of 2021, Cassidy Rainwater, who was 33 years old, was reported missing to Dallas County Sheriff's Office in Dallas County, Missouri. And she was reported missing by a woman named Cora Terry. She has been described as a family member, but that's about all we know. So Cora said that Cassidy hadn't been seen in 6 weeks and was last seen with a man named James Rainwater. Now this name would end up being partially incorrect, but we'll get there. So there's not a whole lot known about Cassidy herself, just that she was enlisted as a freshman in the 2000 yearbook from Harrisonville High School in Cass County, Missouri. A 2015 Facebook page created by someone named Cassidy Rainwater said that she was living in Boulder, Colorado, and was from Harrisonville, Missouri. So that's everything we know about Cassie. Side note about Cassidy's mother, Tracy Wawasuck? W-A-H-W-A-S-S-U-C-K. So yeah, how would you pronounce that? Wawasuck? Also mysteriously disappeared when Cassidy was only 18 years old. So Tracy, whose maiden name is Rainwater according to court documents, was reported missing in April 2007 in Laclede County, Missouri. She was 43 years old and was reportedly last seen in Lebanon, Missouri, which is east of Windyville. So Tracy's then boyfriend, Leonard Couch, told police that Tracy may have gone out looking for arrowheads and she never returned. And then a little over a year later, in May of 2008, a farmer who was spreading like fertilizer on his field found a shoe and human remains that included human teeth scattered all over his field and property. Then Laclede County Sheriff Richard Wrinkle said at the time that anthropologists could find no trauma to the bones or to the teeth, and no cause of death could actually be determined. And after testing, it was later confirmed that those remains found were unfortunately that of Tracy. No charges were ever filed in her murder, and we can't even talk to a potential witness, her then boyfriend Leonard Couch, because he died in February of 2021. So yeah, that's everything we know about Cassidy, and yeah, about her mother. So in late August 2021, she's reported missing. So, you know, the department took this missing persons report. Cora said she hadn't been seen in 6 weeks. And during his follow-up investigation, Sergeant Robbie Simmons learned that the last known person to have any contact or see Cassidy was a man named James D. Phelps, who was 58 years old. So, of course, naturally, that's who Simmons visited. And on September 1st, he interviewed James. So the same day that Simmons is interviewing James, the sheriff's office posted Cassidy's information, like her missing poster, to their official Facebook page, and they captioned it with, quote, "Cassidy has been missing since July 25th. She has associations in Dallas, Laclede, and Greene counties." So when Simmons interviewed James at his home, quote, according to James, Rainwater had been staying with him until she could get back on her feet. James told me she was talking about going to Colorado. James stated about a month prior to this date, Rainwater had left in the middle of the night. She had met with a vehicle at the end of the driveway in the dark, and he has not seen or heard from her since. James said that Cassidy had been staying in a loft on his property, which was located on Moon Valley Road in Lebanon, Missouri. James apparently allowed Simmons to do like a precursory, walk-through search of his property, including the loft where Cassidy supposedly stayed. Quote, the loft was somewhat stripped, and I did not find any personal belongings of Rainwater at this time. So nothing happens for 2 weeks, all right? So Dallas County investigators, they're working Cassidy's case when the FBI office located in Kansas City received a tip from an anonymous source, quote, advising there was a photo of a missing person named CR being held in a cage. The tip was titled Cassidy. I believe it was like an email they had received. And Special Agent Trisha DeWitt of the FBI office in Kansas City then contacted Simmons on September 16th and showed him the photo that they had received with this tip. Simmons immediately recognized the person in this photo as Cassidy. So in the photo, the woman is half nude and locked in a cage. So this same day, September 16th, when Simmons gets this bombshell tip from the FBI, he went and visited James that same day. And he spoke with him, and that is when James was placed under arrest. His cell phone was also confiscated, and quote, at the time the phone was seized, Rainwater had not been located. There were a total of 7 photos of Rainwater in a partially nude state being held in a cage within the Phelps residence at 386 Moon Valley Road in Lebanon, Missouri, within Dallas County. James immediately invoked his right to an attorney and refused to speak with authorities. So during the investigation, Simmons also identified James's friend, Timothy L. Norton, who was 56, as also being connected to the case. And on September 19th, he went over to interview Timothy. So Timothy said he was an over-the-road truck driver who lived in his truck, quote, even when he was not actively transporting a load for delivery. So that same day, the sheriff's office posted an update to their Facebook page, basically just saying that they weren't going to say anything at this time, because this story really went viral. It started to get national attention, but especially like the immediate local area. This case was very hot. Everyone was talking about it. People were demanding to know like every little thing. They wanted a breakdown second by second of what was going on. So the sheriff's office had to go to their Facebook and be like, look, it's an ongoing investigation. We're not going to say anything. And in the comments, someone with the last name of Phelps commented, and I thought their comment was very interesting. So their comment said, quote, I would honestly like to know what happened to Innocent until proven guilty, because all of you guys have decided that he's guilty, and you know nothing about him for this situation. And I hope that each and every one of you someday in your life have to deal with the same exact situation, and you look back on this and realize everything you were putting his loved ones through. Just think about it. Have any of you ever been accused of something you didn't do? And just keep this comment in mind as we get more into this case, all right? As we break it down further. So after this initial interview with Timothy, police discovered that he had lied about some details. So they interviewed him again. And it was here at this second interview that Timothy admitted that he knew Cassidy had been held in a cage on James's property. He said on July 24th, he received a call from James. And according to reports, quote, Norton then admitted that after arriving at Phelps' home, he did physically confine CR by holding her down for a substantial period of time for the purpose of facilitating the commission of a felony or inflicting physical injury on or terrorizing CR. Timothy was of course then arrested, and he and James were then charged with first-degree kidnapping, facilitating a felony, inflicting injury, and terrorizing. James was also charged with a Class B felony kidnapping. Both were held without bond, and at this time, both of them had attorneys. Timothy's was Brandon Twibell, or Tweebell maybe? And James's was Morris Metler. James was held in the Dallas County Jail, while Timothy was held in the Greene County Jail. And in the meantime, authorities searched for Cassidy, not knowing if she was dead or alive. Then, get this, right? On Monday night, October 4th, James's house in Lebanon on Moon Valley Road, where he allegedly kept Cassie, mysteriously burnt to the ground. Now, authorities were tight-lipped about the investigation, and all the public knew was that they had dug more into James's background and had searched his property before this fire. But scanner traffic captured by Broadcastify.com provided some details about the initial reports of this fire at James's home. So apparently, around 8:40 p.m., a voice came over the dispatch for the Polk, Hickory, and Dallas counties public safety channel. Quote, would you respond to Windyville for a structure fire? Moon Valley Road requesting assistance with traffic. Then another voice comes on, quote, 386 Moon Valley Road, 386 Moon Valley Road, request for tanker support, going to be a fully engulfed structure fire. And then shortly after 9 p.m., another voice, quote, be advised, one live incendiary device has been located. The fire marshal has been contacted. We will be en route. And several hours later, just after 1 a.m., quote, bomb squad on scene. So according to the Springfield Fire Department's report, while firefighters battled like the fire and kept it from spreading, other authorities had stumbled upon 2 devices, both of which were attached to like a makeshift tripwire on James's property. They called the Springfield Fire Department's bomb squad, who detonated the devices early on Tuesday morning in an area like near the fire. The devices were made out of mortar tubes, as well as balloons and coiled fuses. And James's home burned all throughout Monday night and early into Tuesday morning, and it was ultimately put out that same day on Tuesday, and his home was a total loss. And investigators ultimately ruled the cause of the fire was arson, specifically second-degree arson, but they have not released any other details about that. So I said this earlier, this case was very popular, especially in the local areas. Like people from surrounding towns came to Moon Valley Road to look at like the burnt out structure and stuff. So of course, when a case is super popular in the area, what do you think happens? Rumors, misinformation, which can hinder investigations, right? So I guess there was so much information and so many rumors that allegedly like wasted a bunch of the officers' time that the Dallas County Sheriff, Scott Rice, took to the department's Facebook page and went on a long rant. And it included, quote, there's a lot of misinformation and rumors regarding the Cassidy Rainwater case being circulated across social media and various news platforms. While I understand the impatience and curiosity of the people, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. It is not a good idea to listen to a crime reporter / blogger or TikTok videos that is sitting in their apartment or their mommy and daddy's basement, eating great value cheese puffs and drinking boxed wine with grand intentions of being a social media superstar. I can tell you, we have all parties involved with Cassidy Rainwater's case in jail, and we expect additional charges to be filed in the coming days. Now, some of course agreed with him, others criticized him, and then there were others like myself who were like, bro, like I get it, but you really don't need to be a demeaning, classist, moronic asshole in your thing. You know what I mean? Like eating great value cheese puffs and boxed wine shit. Like that's sort of like are oddly specific, you know? So that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And then yeah, made some people angry that because they were just like, no, we demand information about this case. Like it was pretty wild reading some of these comments, like on his initial post. Then in November, investigators revealed that they had indeed found remains at James's home. The remains had been dismembered, and after testing came back, they were unfortunately confirmed to be Cassidy's. After this, the charges against James and Timothy were increased, and they were increased to first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, and abandonment of a corpse. Sheriff Rice also revealed more information at this time, saying the photographs they had found of Cassidy on James's phone were actually much more gruesome and horrifying than was originally reported. So apparently the photos showed Cassidy on a gantry crane, which I guess is a device used for like processing deer, you know, like deer meat. And Rice said that Cassidy had been disemboweled and dismembered before her body was placed in a bathtub. More of her remains were found in a freezer, like a deep freezer on the property, and other skeletal remains were found on an adjacent property. Rice said that they had collected physical evidence from James's home before it had burnt down, quote, including the gantry device, cage, and items from the freezer that appeared to be human flesh with a date written on them of 7/24. So all in all, over the 7-day search of James's property, they had collected over 200 pieces of evidence, and, quote, digital evidence revealed messages between James Phelps and Timothy Norton planning the murder of Cassidy Rainwater. They also revealed more information about this second interview with Timothy. So remember, Simmons had originally interviewed Timothy. They found out he'd kind of lied about some stuff, and they had gone back and interviewed him a second time. This was on September 20th, this second interview. And apparently, Timothy had told investigators that James had called him on July 24th and asked him to help him kill Cassidy. So, Timothy had said that she was asleep in the living room when he had come over, and, quote, Norton stated after entering the house, he held Cassidy's legs down while Phelps strangled her and placed a bag over her head. Norton stated that after Cassidy was deceased, he and Phelps took a short break before carrying her body outside. Norton stated that Phelps bound her to the gantry crane, and Phelps began evisceration and dismemberment of Cassidy's body. Norton stated he helped Phelps carry Cassidy's body into the house and placed her into the bathtub. bathtub. Authorities also revealed more details about that tip they had received from the FBI, and they said that they hadn't just received one photo as they initially told media, they had actually received several photos, and some showed, quote, Cassidy's body bound to a gantry crane, commonly used for deer processing, and her evisceration and dismemberment. So I'm wondering, those photos submitted to the FBI, were those the exact same photos on James's phone? Like, obviously they have the same subject matter, but were they like the exact same photos? And it kind of makes you wonder who leaked those photos to the FBI. And it was apparently after, remember getting the FBI tip that Simmons had gone back to James's property and placed him under arrest? Apparently they placed James under arrest at that time because he, quote, recognized items in Phelps' backyard that coincided with the photos. Timothy also told police that he and James would search for victims online as well as at their local Walmart. So in February of 2022, Timothy waived his right to a preliminary hearing and pleaded not guilty, and by March, James had a new attorney, Thomas Jacquinot, who was seeking to have the least serious charge, the abandonment of a corpse charge, dismissed, arguing that it violated James's Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination. And as you can guess, the abandonment of a corpse is when, someone fails to notify authorities of a dead body. And James's attorney was arguing that they couldn't charge a murder suspect with abandonment of a corpse because reporting it would be an admission of the crime, or at least some sort of involvement with the murder. But the Dallas County prosecutor, Jonathan Barker, argued that one could anonymously tip off authorities to the location of the body. And I'm not sure what happened with that particular charge, if the judge dismissed it or what, but Jacquinot was able to successfully argue for James to be allowed to appear in court in civilian clothes because there were going to be cameras in court. And in July, in a surprise move, James also waived his right to a preliminary hearing, and he did this like the night before he was to have his. James also waived his formal arraignment and pleaded not guilty. While Timothy re-entered his not guilty plea, there was some sort of language change in the forms that the prosecution had, so he had to formally re-enter his plea of not guilty. And the court also granted confidential security protection for the list of witnesses that are going to be called for James and Timothy's trials. So there will be absolutely no information whatsoever about who these witnesses are, what they're going to say, or their connection to the case until the trials happen. It was also revealed in February of 2022, the police had found child pornography and pornography of a violent nature in Timothy's home when they searched it. And in September of that year, 2022, prosecutors announced that they were going to seek the death penalty against James. And the latest information we have is that on January 20th, 2023, James's lawyer filed a motion to request a change of venue, and a hearing for that is scheduled for April 1st. So far, as of the recording of this video, it looks like James's trial isn't slated to start until the fall of 2024, next year, and it is expected to last about 3 weeks. On January 24th, 2023, Timothy appeared in court, although I'm not exactly sure for what, but his next court appearance is slated for May 2nd, where it is expected a judge will set a trial date for Timothy. And that is everything we know about this case thus far. Yeah. We don't even know a whole lot of information. Like I said, dude, investigators are keeping very tight-lipped about this, which is understandable. I couldn't believe some of the comments I read. It was just like, well, we demand to know, we deserve to know if we're safe, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bitch, this is an ongoing investigation. This isn't Law & Order. This isn't a TV show or anything. You're not detectives. We can't have them releasing too much information about this. It was just wild. The comments I was reading, people were very angry and upset about not getting, all these details. And I'm super, super curious to know how these trials are gonna go because it's so wild. We don't know a whole lot about Cassidy. Maybe more will be revealed about her when the trials start. It's so sad that, I don't know, if she was staying with James, that she trusted him to, be someone who could help her out, and instead, him and Timothy decided to kill and dismember her? And Timothy telling police that they had, planned this? They had looked for victims online and at their Walmart? What the fuck? What are these two idiots doing? And it kind of makes you, again, remember that comment from that someone with the last name of Phelps that commented oh, you don't know anything? It's kind of now what? This is some pretty damning evidence they found on James's property. Sorry, brah, I'm sorry that your family member is looking like a disgusting murderer, but, I also understand because people, especially in the true crime community, can be very cringy, right? People think that they're somehow detectives or sleuths or something, and they will harass family members of the suspect. And it's like, guys, don't do that. That's cringe. That's stupid. And it does nothing because you don't know anything. You're not the cops with all of the information and stuff. You don't know everything they have. So I don't know if his family was being harassed or what. But yeah, I just thought that comment was very interesting. And I'm super curious to know who leaked those photos. I mean, who do you guys think it was? Like, could it have been Timothy? I don't know. I don't know if those photos that the FBI got too are the exact same ones that were found on James's phone. And if they weren't, of course, that begs the question, are there more photos out there? I don't know, man. There's so many questions with this, and maybe we'll get some answers when these trials start. And yeah, that's gonna go ahead and do it for me this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope your month is off to a fantastic start. I'll be back next week with some more cases that I've come across, and maybe even some updates. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'll see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.